Hugh was a 17-year-old climber, one of the best rock climbers in the United States. And 30 years ago, he and a buddy decided to do some ice climbing on Mount Washington in New Hampshire in the wintertime. They did the climb, and then the next day they decided to do another climb. They got to the top of the mountain, and they got in a whiteout. Well, apparently they didn't have a map, and apparently they didn't have a compass, and they went down the wrong side of the mountain. They spent 3 nights out in terrible weather, and they were at the point where they felt they were about to die from exposure, the cold, just being miserable. And at that point, they were rescued by a search and rescue lady. This is what Hugh looks like today. He lost both feet from legs from about 6 inches below the knee. The interesting thing about this, is kind of a side note, is that he became interested in artificial limbs. He started making his own so he could go back to climbing. Within months, he was climbing rocks again. And now he's at MIT, and he made a lot of the artificial limbs for people that had lost limbs at the Boston Marathon last year. So there's some good came of this. But my question to Hugh is, you're a great rock climber. Why on earth did you ever learn how to start a fire? It's not that difficult. Basically, you need some something to catch the spark, then you need some kindling, and then you need some bigger stuff, and then bigger stuff, and finally get your fire going. It's pretty easy to start a fire. If you're out in the woods, first thing you need to do is get all the material ready. I've actually had this happen to me where I started a fire in the wintertime. I was in a rush, wanted to get some heat, and I got the fire kind of going, and all of a sudden I ran out of fuel and realized, oh, what am I going to do? I ran out to try to find some more stuff, and by the time I got back, my fire was out. Had to start all over again. So get plenty of wood. And the best kind of wood to get is from trees, branches. You can find those even if there's a lot of snow on the ground. Now, what are you going to do to catch that spark? Well, one of the things that works is lint off your dryer. Doesn't weigh very much. Put it in your backpack, and that works really good. I've used this. Fire paste. Kept to have it. Another thing, my wife and I were camping on Mount Whitney in the wintertime in the snow, and the wind was coming up, and it was pretty miserable. And I didn't have any paper, I didn't have all this other stuff, and I want a fire. What am I going to do to get this thing going? I had a candle in my pack, and I just took about that much a candle, got that going. That candle got my fire going great. One of the ideas from this guy's book, Cody, 98.6 degrees, the art of keeping yourself alive, is you take some cotton balls, make sure they're cotton and not fake stuff. There's a marker in there that shows where the fire part is. And you soak it in Vaseline, and you put that in your little baggie, and tear it apart, light it with a match. That cotton ball will burn for 5 to 6 minutes. Real easy to start a fire that way. Matches, real nice to keep them in something that's going to not get wet. The problem that I have with this, I took it camping last year and left them out on the table so anybody could start a stove or anything they wanted, had the matches all ready to go. Only problem was there was no place to strike the match. So I need to put some sandpaper on this thing so it'll work better. This works great. Okay. Yeah, another thing that I didn't bring, and that's a magnesium block. And you shave off this magnesium, get a spark going in that, and it burns. I think it's 5,400 degrees, something like that. Am I right, Rich, or something like that? It's very, very hot. I've never actually tried to start a fire that way because I'm a little nervous about the magnesium. But if you had really wet conditions and really miserable, if you had one of those, no doubt you could get a fire going. Here's a couple more books you can pass around. So once you got your material, you got your little fire going, but where is the fire located? Location, 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 just like real estate. You got to make sure that fire's in the right place. Jack London had a story that has always fascinated me about a fellow that's crossing the Yukon in very cold weather, and he accidentally gets his feet wet, and he's got to have a fire to dry out, or he's going to lose his feet. Well, he gets this little fire going, but unfortunately, it's right under a fir tree, and all the work that he's doing ends up dropping all the snow off the fir tree right on his fire, puts out the fire, and when he tries to start the fire again, his hands are so numb, he can't strike a match. And, of course, he dies out there. So it's good to have a location probably out of the really heavy wind if you're in bad weather. And so that helps a lot. So if you do those things, have plenty of fuel, start with little stuff, and the wood you want really small to start with, and even if it's wet, you can even get a fire going. So practice a little bit, and then you too could be known as a fire master.